My name's Ellen Moran, and I'm a co-founder of Adventure Weekend with Betty Borey, who came up with the concept.
My name's Christine Landry, or some of you know me as Chris. I have been facilitating the Adventure Weekend for the Betty J. Borey Breast Cancer Retreats since 1995.
I'm Cynthia Cody, and I am a 26-year survivor of very advanced breast cancer and a two-time breast cancer survivor.
Hi, I'm Julie, or Julie Ann Chase, and I was diagnosed with breast cancer on April 4th, 2017.
My name is Wendy Cogswell. I'm a 21-year survivor of breast cancer. And back in 2005, I had the opportunity to attend Adventure Weekend.
I was invited to this program that was very new. It was a kind of a trial program, if you will, that the American Cancer Society was sponsoring, and it was called Adventure Weekend. And it was talking about being outdoors and being in nature and the healing power of nature and being with other women, other breast cancer women. So being as weak as a puppy and barely able to move myself, even though I had been a very physically active, vegetarian runner, as my oncologist called me, I said, sign me up, I'm coming. I don't know if I can do anything physically because I really hadn't before this time. And she said, come on up, it's challenge by choice and we'll figure it out.
Original Adventure Weekends, probably for the first 5 years, the way we structured it, Friday night getting to know each other, Saturday having an initial element just to ease people into the concept, Sunday ending with a bang on the high ropes course.
Women come in, they arrive, they come into the parking lot, and they're greeted by one of the board members of the Betty J. Borey Breast Cancer Retreats, or somebody who has volunteered to go out and greet people as they arrive. So we get together, we have a meal together, and we start the process immediately. As a facilitator, I want to start helping people connect as soon as they get there. So they have somebody that they are familiar with, and around the dinner table, we basically give people a chance just to be social and get to know something about the people sitting to their left and right. And probably the most important part of the Friday evening get together is the storytelling part. It is the part of the evening where people get to tell their individual stories with their journey, how they got to where they are. Typically, it's about their cancer journey. And it can be very revealing, very emotional, and we want people to feel comfortable telling their story so they can start to make some connections with other people in the group.
There was so much hope sitting right there all around me, all these women. As I was learning their stories and their journeys to that point, I realized that this is exactly what I need. I need to be surrounded by these people, all of these women who have been through this, who are really living their life very fully and recovering and, just soldiering on no matter what.
But knowing that there's a community of sisters who understand you and get you, I was really craving that and yearning about it. And I kept hearing about these retreats. And then the first one that I was supposed to go to, I had severely broken my leg and had to miss it. And that's okay, because you know what? God was showing off. He had another plan. So then I got selected for this one in the fall of 2019. And it was supposed to be in Massachusetts, which was great. But then something changed and it got moved to Wavis. And I knew right away, as I said, God was showing off, because I knew this whole past year of feeling yet again helpless and feeling like I couldn't do the things I wanted to do and feeling like I was alone. I knew that being with these women and being at this retreat, at this special place for me, was going to be the adventure I needed, and it has been.
So before we head out to do our physical part, we talk about we talked about your stories last evening. And so we know where you've been and where you're coming to. And now we're going to start a new story. We're going to start to rewrite your story this morning. So we want to emphasize when we do that, moving forward and creating a new story for yourself.
I had always been an outdoors woman. I enjoyed the winter, and that's of course luckily when this adventure weekend occurred. And so got there and there was snow, and I was kind of query because I'd never been on something like this before. Could I, being a survivor, could I move myself forward to be stronger, be happier with what I dealt with or what I was still dealing with? I met 10 amazing women. We all had a blast in the snow. I guess that's how I look at it. We were able to connect. And even though we might have been through different stages of breast cancer and dealing with different types, we all had that, what we call sisterhood. We all understood we could help each other, and that was huge. I remember on my early Sunday morning getting out of my cabin before the sun came out and just going out and taking a deep breath and saying, yeah, I think it was a wake. It really was. I hate to say this, I know it sounds hacky, but it was a true wake-up call that, yeah, there is life outside the box, and there will be a day that you'll say, yeah, I'm going to take it by the horns and I'm going to go forward. And because you always know you have that sisterhood behind you too to support you.
Adventure Weekend got to a point where the group, including Betty, needed to have follow-up. So you would have a wonderful adventure weekend. All these women would have this great experience, but we wanted some way to have a reunion, so to speak. And the concept of Betty J. Borey breast cancer retreats came up. And that's when we were lucky enough to have Cynthia with her background to create a nonprofit and make that happen.
And we took on more and more of the roles, particularly as Betty was becoming very aware of probably the end of her life, and that all of her attempts to kind of stay alive were coming to an end. And at that point, she had a plan for what she wanted to have happen for Adventure Weekend. And so that the journey could continue for people. And that's how we kind of moved into forming the 501c3 nonprofit organization called Betty J. Borey Breast Cancer Retreats. This was her wish beforehand, which we were fulfilling, which is to keep this thing going. Not just as Adventure Weekend, but expanding it to a retreat, an adventure-based retreat opportunity for women of all ages and stages of breast cancers.
As the years progressed, I was very lucky to be asked to be one of the volunteers to help out with the other survivors when we were out on our adventures. I've been very lucky to be asked to be also part of Betty J. Borey Breast Cancer Retreats. I started as a board member, went to vice president, and now I'm president of the organization.
I first met Betty when I worked at Eastern Mountain Sports, and at the time I was a store manager there. And Betty was working as an assistant principal at the middle school in Antrim. And she came in to ask for some presents or prizes for her kids who were achieving academically. And then later on, because Betty was an avid outdoors woman, she'd come into the store just to pick up some gear and go out on adventures. And at a certain point where we got to know each other better, she revealed to me her diagnosis. And she had seen, as has I, a program on 60 Minutes. And the 60 Minutes program was a group of women, about a dozen of them. They were all in various stages of breast cancer recovery and treatment, but they were using an outward bound type program to get out into the wilderness and create a bond between the women. And Betty had talked about that show, and I had seen it, and I said, yeah, that is an excellent idea. And at that point, Betty shared, I'm in treatment currently, but we sit inside a room, indoors in chairs, no natural light, and just talk to each other. And that medium is not working for me.
The first experience was kind of it was kind of hodgepodge of everything you could possibly squeeze into a weekend, because that was Betty J. Borey's way. She was a woman of action. She wanted to do a lot. She wanted people to be exposed to a lot. And so her philosophy was, let's do it all. And that was Betty. And we did do quite a bit. We did a lot of activities. We probably didn't do as much reflection and debriefing as we should have. We certainly do that now. The focus has kind of changed, has turned away from quantity to quality activities and reflections afterwards. The ropes course is kind of like the top of the mountain. It's like what everybody, it's kind of like the culmination of the weekend in terms of adventure. It's a very important tool, no doubt. I see it as a very important tool in helping people grow and develop. But the work that the ladies have done from Friday evening through Saturday really comes into play when we get on the ropes course.
I did get a gist of the fact that we were going to do some big culminating activity on Sunday, which was that ropes course. And I could barely walk, let alone climb, rope ladders and do all these obstacles and zip and that and whatever we were doing up there. But because by that point, I had really gotten it about and felt the support and the encouragement and so on from the women I was with, that was, I knew whatever part of it I could do, I would do with only with the support of the people.
I had a blast for my first one, and every time I come back, when I'm able to, I still have a blast. I love cheering the women on. I love when they cheer me on. And that camaraderie and that strength, especially when we have a woman that's a little scared about doing it, but yet we cheer her on and get her going. Next thing you know, she's taking it on by the storm and off she goes.
And I was convinced that because of my neck, I couldn't do it. In my team that I was with, they got me up on the highest rope challenge here during a rainstorm, pretty much a hurricane. And with all the metal in my neck, with my team having me on belay, they got me from one pine tree to the other. And when I got to the other end, I bit the pine needle in my mouth and I held it there, and the tears came, and suddenly I felt like myself again. And I knew that all that time I was trying to do it on my own, but having the team below me on belay got me to the other side.
In the winter, it's pretty cold when you're climbing and whatnot, and sometimes the ropes can be a little slippery. I made it almost all the way, and I got hung up, what we call hung up. I lost my balance. I was hanging. And the great facilitators that we had with us really wanted to come over and help me out. The first word out of my mouth was, "Don't do it, I'm fine." I hung there for about, I'd say 5 or 10 minutes. And then I said, "Okay, girl, get your act together. You can do it." I pulled myself back up, continued across the ropes, and was able to take a tremendous ride on the zip line on the next level. It was awesome. And that proved to me that I had the strength that I really needed to keep myself going.
One of the unique things about this program is that it's not just sitting around in a sterile room and talking about, "Oh, woe is me." It's about getting out and doing something physical and using the natural world as an environment to grow and learn and develop as a person.
We were just in the right place at the right time to have access to a beautiful piece of country up here in New Hampshire. And then the right medium to take people out in a way maybe they hadn't navigated before. And that navigation translates to their mental state at the time and what they can pull out of the forest or the water and bring it into their own life.
I work at a private school down in Massachusetts, and we have our own bird sanctuary, which is 240 acres of land, nothing else. 3 ponds inside the sanctuary and a trail that you can walk all through the sanctuary. And every day I would stop by one of the ponds and there would be a group of birds that would sing to me every day. So, excuse me if I get a little emotional. It was worth every step that I took through there. And I think that was a wake-up call that I needed to change and get myself feeling what nature really is all about. And I'm very lucky I'm able to do that.
I got to tell you a story about how we know what Betty feels. And that's what we call a weather event. So in our early years, when she wasn't with us, if there was one weekend that ever happened that wasn't some kind of major weather event, she would send her approval of, yep, doing well, ladies, like it, good. I better tweak it up a little bit here. I'm going to send you a little storm to keep you on your toes. You're getting a little complacent here.
One of the big lessons for me is it's allowed me to be emotional, and it's okay. It's okay to be a girl, to get all sniffly once in a while. Her spirit is definitely around. And at the beginning of October, Cynthia and I and my friend Wendy, we went back to Sargent Center after doing one of our adventure activities to promote the 25th anniversary of the Adventure Weekend. We went back to Sargent Camp and we walked around the camp, and it was, I'm telling you, the energy there, I just felt Betty everywhere. And I felt the spirit of all those women that we touched in those 25 years. And we went out to the high ropes course. We went to Northern Lodge. We would have walked down to Southern Lodge if it wasn't going to get dark so early. Went to Half Moon Pond, talked about kayaking with Ellen and Annie Card and snowshoeing and photography and the Peninsula Trail. I mean, it was just so uplifting that all the way home, I felt like I was going to start crying. I was so happy. And it was like, wow, this place was so important to so many people for so many different reasons.
I consider myself an antiquated survivor at 21 years. But, the thing is when being able to connect with women with all stages and all ages, I learned more about myself. And that's kind of funny. I know it sounds funny, but I learned more about myself and my emotions that go with it, how I can tell people now without people feeling sorry for me. That was a really hard thing, is when they found out I had breast cancer, people felt sorry for me. And it was like, nope, I don't need your sorrow, I need your strength. And I think by being part of these organizations and meeting more women, my strength has gotten bigger because my knowledge has improved.
If you asked me in 1995, if 25 years later this would still be going on, I'm just stunned and happy. And I know Betty is smiling down from heaven.
I think she probably would be proud. And she should be, because it really was from her head and heart this whole thing began. And I think she would say, yep, you're making the journey continue for all of these women, these thousands of women now, the alumna who have gone through this. And you've created the sisterhood that we need in order to live our life fully and move on to, whatever the future brings us. And we can do that with confidence.
Mary Oliver wrote this wonderful poem called Wild Geese. And it starts with saying, "You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees." And so when I introduced myself, I said I'm Julie or Julianne. So Julie was the Julie who was good and did what she was supposed to do. Julianne, during breast cancer, realized to just speak up and say what you need. And I'm learning that every day. And you know what? We don't have to walk on our knees. We don't have to explain why we got cancer. We don't have to explain why sometimes we just need to be by ourselves, or why we have to be with our sisters. The poem says, "Tell me about your despair, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on." And so I honor you if you're watching this. And you know what? I hear you. you, and I feel it. And you know what? The world does go on. And it goes on by reaching out and being connected to others and having adventures together. And that's what this group has come to mean to me.